The backyard barbecue was my idea. I'd invited my parents, my brother Jason and his fiancée Michelle, and a few family friends to celebrate Jason's engagement. What I didn't expect was for my mother to use my grill to announce she was selling my house. "Everyone, we have exciting news," Mom said, tapping her wine glass for attention. "David and I have found the perfect way to give Jason and Michelle their dream wedding." I flipped burgers, half listening. My father smiled proudly beside her. "We're selling the Riverside property," Mom announced. "The house should fetch about $680,000, which means we can give the kids a $200,000 wedding and help them with a down payment on their own place." I stopped flipping. "The Riverside property?" "Yes, dear. This house." Mom gestured around my backyard like she was presenting it on a home shopping network. "It's been a wonderful family investment, but Jason's wedding is more important." "This is my house," I said slowly. "Well, technically it's been in the family trust since your grandmother passed," Dad said. "We've let you live here, but now we need to liquidate the asset." My grandmother had passed 5 years ago. She'd left me $95,000, which I'd used as a down payment on this house. I'd paid the mortgage myself for 5 years. But apparently my parents had convinced themselves otherwise. "I bought this house with my own money," I said. "Grandma's money," Mom corrected. "Which makes it a family asset. And Jason needs it more than you do right now. You're single, you can rent an apartment. Jason's starting a family. We're getting married in 6 months," Michelle added excitedly. "Your mom showed me pictures of this gorgeous venue in Napa. It's $85,000 just for the venue, but it's so worth it." I looked around at my guests. My Aunt Linda nodding along, family friends murmuring congratulations, Jason grinning like he'd won the lottery. "When exactly were you planning to tell me about this?" I asked. "We're telling you now," Dad said. "Our realtor is actually here. Linda, come meet Cameron." A woman in her 50s approached, professional smile in place, business card already out. "Cameron Hughes, Premier Properties. Your parents have told me so much about this lovely home. Have they told you I own it?" Cameron's smile flickered. "They mentioned it was a family property being sold for estate purposes." "It's not an estate property. It's my primary residence that I purchased 5 years ago." "Drew, don't be difficult," Mom said. "We've already signed the listing agreement. Cameron's scheduling the photographer for next week." I set down my spatula. "You signed a listing agreement for a house you don't own?" "Hold up. We're the beneficial owners through the family trust," Dad insisted, though his voice was less confident now. "Your grandmother's inheritance paid for it." "Grandma's inheritance was my down payment. I've paid the mortgage for 5 years. Alone. From my salary." I pulled out my phone. "Would you like to see my mortgage statements?" "That's not necessary," Mom said quickly. "The point is, the money came from family, so the house belongs to the family. Now the family needs it for Jason's wedding." "A $200,000 wedding," I repeated. "It's not just the wedding," Jason said. "Michelle and I need help with a down payment too. Mom said we'd get at least $100,000 from the house sale." "From selling my house that you don't own?" "Stop saying that," Mom snapped. "You're being selfish. This is your brother's wedding. Don't you want him to be happy?" "I want him to have a wedding he can actually afford." "We can afford it once we sell the house," Dad said. Cameron was looking increasingly uncomfortable. "Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, perhaps we should verify the ownership situation before we proceed with." "There's nothing to verify," Mom interrupted. "Drew is just being stubborn because he doesn't want to share. He's always been like this." I'd been like this since I was 26 and bought my first house with money I'd saved. Since I'd worked 60-hour weeks as an architect to afford the mortgage. Since I'd renovated the kitchen myself last year and landscaped the yard the year before. But to my parents I was just being stubborn. "I'm going to get something from inside," I said. "Cameron, please don't leave." In my home office I pulled out my property file. Deed showing sole ownership. Mortgage documents in my name only. Property tax records showing 5 years of payments from my account. Title insurance. Everything that proved this house was mine. I returned to find Dad showing Cameron around the yard, pointing out features like he owned the place. "The deck is composite, very low maintenance," Dad was saying. "And the landscaping is professionally done. Increases value significantly." "I did the landscaping," I said. Myself. Because it's my house. I handed Cameron my deed. She scanned it, her professional expression shifting to concern. This shows Andrew Patterson as sole owner. Not a trust, not your parents. You. That's what I've been trying to tell everyone. But Grandma's money, Mom started, was a gift to me that I used for a down payment on a house I bought. In my name only. I showed Cameron the mortgage documents. 5 years of payments. All from my account. Cameron turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, did you not verify ownership before signing the listing agreement? We assumed, Dad said weakly. You can't sell a property you don't own. That's, Cameron paused, professional discretion keeping her from saying what we all knew. Fraud. This is ridiculous, Jason said. Drew, just agree to sell it. We need this wedding. You need a $200,000 wedding? We need a proper start to our marriage, Michelle said. Your parents promised us this money. You can't just take it away. I'm not taking anything away. They're trying to sell something that isn't theirs. But it should be theirs, Mom insisted. Family money should stay in the family, available for family needs. You're being selfish by keeping it all for yourself. Revelation. I'm being selfish by keeping my own house? Yes, Jason said flatly. You have all this space, all this value, and you won't help your own brother. I looked at him, my younger brother who'd never held a job longer than 2 years, who'd asked me for money at least a dozen times, who was now planning a wedding that cost more than my annual salary. Jason, what do you do for work right now? I'm between positions, he said defensively. He's transitioning careers, Michelle corrected. He's going to start a consulting business after the wedding. With what capital? With the money from the house sale, Michelle said as if this was obvious. So you're planning to start a business with money from selling my house without my permission. When you put it like that you make it sound bad, Jason muttered. Cameron was gathering her things. I need to void that listing agreement. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, you've signed a contract to sell property you don't own. That's actionable. Actionable. Dad's face paled. The owner, your son, could pursue legal action for attempted fraud. I need to cancel this immediately and report it to my broker. Report it. Mom's voice rose. Cameron, we're friends. You went to college with Linda. Surely we can work this out quietly. I can't quietly cover up an attempt to sell someone else's property. That could cost me my license. She left quickly, already on her phone, probably calling her broker. Aunt Linda stood up. Drew, surely you can compromise. Family should help family. Aunt Linda, they tried to sell my house without telling me. Where's the compromise in that? They assumed you'd agree once you understood Jason's needs. They assumed wrong. $200,000 for a wedding, I said to Jason. Do you hear how insane that sounds? It's Michelle's dream wedding, Jason said. And we deserve it after everything we've been through. What have you been through? Unemployment? That you chose. I chose to pursue my passions instead of selling out like you did. I chose to be an architect and buy a house. That's not selling out, that's being an adult. Boys, please, Mom tried to interrupt. No, Mom. Jason needs to hear this. You don't get a $200,000 wedding funded by selling someone else's house. You get the wedding you can afford. Like everyone else. We can afford it if you just be reasonable, Michelle said. I am being reasonable. You're the ones trying to sell my property to fund a party. Dad stood up abruptly. Fine. Keep your house. But don't expect us to keep supporting you. Supporting me? I've lived independently for 8 years. When have you supported me? We gave you grandmother's inheritance. She gave it to me. In her will. That you had no control over. We could have contested it, Dad said. On what grounds? She left it to me because I was the only grandchild who visited her every week for the last 3 years of her life. You didn't contest it because you had no case. The backyard was silent except for burgers burning on the grill I'd forgotten about. Resolution. So that's it? Jason asked finally. You're really going to keep your house and let my wedding fall apart? Your wedding isn't falling apart. Your $200,000 venue plan is falling apart. Have a wedding you can afford. We've already put down deposits, Michelle said, tears forming. We've sent save the dates. Everyone knows about the Napa venue. Then you'll need to explain the change. That's not my problem. My parents gathered their things in angry silence. Jason and Michelle left without saying goodbye. Aunt Linda gave me a disappointed look on her way out. Only my friend Marcus remained, helping me scrape burned burgers off the grill. That was intense, he said. They tried to sell my house, Marcus. I heard. Your mom is something else. They really believe it belongs to them. Because 15% of the down payment came from my grandmother. The grandmother who left the money to you specifically. Doesn't matter. In their minds, family money means their money. Marcus scraped in silence for a moment. You doing okay? I will be. Once I change my locks. You think they'd try something? I think my mother still believes she's right and I'm being selfish. So yeah, I'm changing my locks. The next day, I received an email from Cameron's broker apologizing for the incident and confirming the listing agreement was void. My parents sent a text saying I was no longer welcome at family gatherings until I reconsidered my priorities. Jason called once, asking if I'd at least contribute $50,000 to the wedding as a gift. I declined. 3 months later, I heard through Aunt Linda that Jason and Michelle had a small wedding at a local venue. 50 guests instead of 200. It cost $8,000 total, which my parents paid. It was actually lovely, Aunt Linda told me. More intimate than the Napa plan would have been. I'm glad it worked out. Your mother still isn't speaking to you. I know. She really believed the house should be sold for Jason. I know that too. Doesn't make her right. I hung up and looked around my living room. My living room in my house that I'd bought with my money and nearly lost to my family's entitlement. They'd tried to sell it without asking. They'd signed listing agreements. They'd counted profits from an asset they didn't own. And when confronted with the actual deed, they'd blamed me for their fraud. My house. My deed. My boundary. Exactly as it should be.